Good afternoon, I'm Roshan, and I'm going to do a research report on Adorno's listener typography. I'm specifically going to ask how does one understand the collective experience of music in film. This is what I'm going to talk about through the presentation. I'm going to cover the research question and field study, the reasoning and the argument, touch briefly on about Adorno and cover his listener typography. Briefly talk about the sociological, cultural and economical influences on popular music and the evolution of it. And also to do with films about the rise and fall and the rise again of the classical underscore in films. There'll be a short conclusion and a literature of interest. So the research question and field of study. Overall, the research report would ask the above research question and define fields of study as film music, popular music, and music psychology or sociology as well. The reasoning and the argument would be sort of approached like this. Through Adorno's listener's typography, he argues that the standardisation of popular music has a structure that serious music does not confine itself to. In effect, he's saying that popular music is a commodity and cannot cater to the needs of the human emotion or the imagination as classical music and avant-garde pieces do. So, since classical music is heavily used as a standardised form of film music today, the reasoning lies here. Classical music is now more popular than ever and has become so because of popular music. All about Adorno will aim to probe into Adorno's own history, his influences and his opinions or beliefs, including his neo-Marxist beliefs and alternative social development theories. It will discuss the musicological ideals that he shared in his notion of the culture industry. At a movie premiere, Adorno's listener typography, consisting of 8 listener types, might receive an audience representing these types for different reasons. And so using this typography, an analysis between the different moviegoers can be explored in context of current film music. The report will go on to cover the sociological, cultural and economical influences on popular music, and it will highlight the evolution of popular music through the decades. It will explore scientific theories and developments related to music psychology, the cultural influences on the evolution of popular trends, and it will describe the supply and demand dictatorship in the music industry. This section will explain the role of music in film and how box office hits used classical music, the need for classical orchestra underscores during the decades, and the battle between classical music and popular music in film. To conclude the report, through his listener typography, Adorno again argues that one who prefers to listen to popular music can't possibly or necessarily understand or appreciate the intricacies of classical music. And so classical music has been influenced by popular music through the report, as we'll find out, and therefore has become more accessible and more appreciated by a wider audience through film. Therefore, to conclude, can Adorno's theories still apply in the setting of film music if the classical film score is now popular? This is the literature of interest books that I intend to just start this summary to look through. And this is how I intend to structure the report. Questions?
Okay, good, thank you. Has anyone got any questions I'd like to ask? Yeah, Louise.
Yeah, sorry, I was just wondering if there's other people that you've found that might be of interest apart from Adorno on your specific subject.
I have looked, and I am still looking for that, but at the moment it's about Adorno's actual beliefs and opinions, how we arrived at that, and whether that is still valid today. It might be or might not be in context with popular music, but I'm trying to link the trend that popular music follows and how film music or the film industry has adopted that. So in Battle of Blockbusters section of the report, it will highlight, say, how classical orchestras had developed at that time. And so the theorists around that time might not have shared Adorno's views.
Yeah.
What if you're doing something for a different reason?
Yeah.
So applying Adorno's belief to the actual film music industry and proving in a sense that the scores that we're listening to, although they're classically oriented, they're very pop flavoured. So I'm trying to find other authors who have written about film music, and possibly throw some controversy in there, and bring some other things in to see if anyone can relate and such.
Cool. Okay. Anyone else? That was well answered. This is a really interesting area, I think. A couple of things I think we're going to need to clearly define. I mean, obviously, because you're basing this around Adorno, your theoretical framework is clear from the outset. I think the areas that are going to require you to really focus is going to be the context, and that's clearly film. The context is the film. It's not it's the application of music to that context. But you clearly define the notion of classical within that context and the notion of the pop influence on that. And I like the idea of when you said the battle between popular music and classical music in the filmic scenario. That's really interesting. If you need anything on... It's a particular film theory called the apparatus of cinema. Give me a shout, because I taught this module a couple of years ago. That might enable you in terms of diegetic and extra-diegetic sound. So, you know, music that's actually being used in the scene, and the music, like I said, as an underscore, something that's kind of either overlaid or supportive underneath, as perhaps the classical music element would be. One thing that you need to ask yourself is why is classical used? Why can't we just use popular music? And you need to look to that then to see, is it the drama? Is it the drama that we're actually extrapolating from it?
The film's trying to portray that music originally was just taken from libraries. So they put Mozart to a film.
Yep.
It might have gone, but then it becomes an association with it.
But then look at
Mozart's piece being entirely written for what he wrote it for.
That's a different argument, isn't it?
From that argument comes where composers have a way to score specifically for film.
And would you?
Piece, and then it just gets synchronised.
So would you say then that actually through film scores we now see a new birth of classical music?
I think we're seeing new classical music, but in a stylistic fashion, following popular trends. So there'd be synthesised brass in there that sound pretty much spot on and fits the tone of the picture. So it's about the actual underscore. It wasn't just classical music, that was the underscore in the first place. There were bands that came on, and that's when pop music started becoming the film underscore, and that's what the battle of the classical side of music.
I think you need to speak to Dr. Renata Braniger, who is actually in dance. She's one of the dance lecturers, because she did her PhD on film music. And I think she'd be really useful to speak to here, because an awful lot of this actually stems from opera. Because you have the stage, don't you, the setting, which is no different to a TV screen or a cinema screen, with the music being overlaid on the top, so you get that immersive experience. It actually stems from opera, and I think that you could argue this is where this classical link comes from. It's classical that is able to elicit a very specific emotional response from us. I also think it's worth you having a look at Sergei Eisenstein. Yeah, I'll write that down for you. He did a film in 1927 called Battleship Potemkin, where and it's really early, and actually he was a Marxist filmmaker, so that ties in with Adorno there theoretically. And what he did is he messed about with montage. Sorry?
Eisler, did you say?
No, Sergei Eisenstein.
Oh, right.
But he messed about with montage, so that he figured that the way that he clipped and edited a piece of footage would elicit more of a stronger emotional reaction from his crowd, from his audience. So you couple that then with a specific style of classical writing or classical composition. So, for example, Lord of the Rings might not have had the effect that it had if it had no classical composition in it.
That's right.
See what I mean?
I've got one good example actually already about it. There was a film called The Weekend. It was about a drunk guy who just declined through that weekend. He just went on a bender. And the film was released with no music or anything like that. So at the pivotal point where he was breaking down, he was crying, and he was going through the darkest emotions, there was people in the audience were sniggering and giggling, right? So, and it didn't do well at all. So it got pulled, and I think 3 years later got
Re-released with music.
With an original score on it, and it won so many Oscars. But it didn't
See,
get
that's
those
fascinating. That's it. I think that's wonderful that you could use that as a really pertinent case in point.
Yeah.
Very good. Thanks very much, Rosh. That's great.
Thanks.